Hey Hacksters! Today we have an interview with Krystal Persaud, the founder of Grouphug Tech. I'm so excited to talk to you. You've launched this Kickstarter for a beautiful solar panel. How's it going?
Yes, thank you. I'm really excited to be here too. So far it's going really well. So I can show you guys for anyone that doesn't know. Grouphug, oh wow, it looks like so big. You can see myself, but I designed this solar panel and I like to call it's a designer solar panel designed for people who want to be more sustainable but don't know where to start and are maybe not techie at all. So you literally just hang it up in your window and it has a rechargeable battery and circuit board built into the bamboo frame, like really discreetly. And then there's a USB port built into the frame, so you can actually just plug any USB device off the grid.
It's so beautiful. So what all is concealed in the frame there? Do you have like a regulator?
Yeah, so actually it's I used to work at Little Bits as a
Yeah.
director of product design, so I know a lot about making tiny cute circuit boards. So it's like three main components. So I actually have been custom designing these like really beautiful solar panels. So this is actually like, I don't know if you can see this, but this is actually like a custom solar panel design with like a little JST connector, making assembly really easy and modular, which is important for like e-waste.
Mm.
And then you can kind of see the back there is all soldered at 90-degree angles. Like all the visuals, like I really take a lot of care into it. So each one of these are like individual solar cells. So you have like a custom solar panel. And then actually inside here, there's a really skinny circuit board that's like 1/2 inch by 4 inches. It's like a really funny form factor. And then there's an 18650 battery.
Cool.
So it's all concealed in there. And then the PCB has like the temperature control, charge circuitry. It like keeps it at a level 5 volts for you for charging.
Super cool. How many milliamps can this output?
Yeah, so the actual panel itself is 10 watts. So it's like 6.7 volts and like 1.2 amps, which is really great for mobile devices. And the circuit like boosts it up so that it charges the battery at a stable rate so that when you plug your phone in, it's like all optimized to be as close to wall power as possible.
So then, yeah, it doesn't matter if like a cloud goes all over or...
Nope, not at all, because you're actually just charging from the battery. Because solar without battery, which I'm sure people kind of get, it's like really inconsistent. And to get a good charge on your phone, you need that 5 volts. So otherwise, it'd be going like charge on charge, charge on charge, charge on charge
Yeah.
every time a cloud goes by, which is really annoying.
You've been doing a bunch of stuff with solar. So first up, here's the Kickstarter we've got.
We actually just hit 45,000 this
Yeah,
morning. Ah!
4.5 times your goal. That's incredible. And you still got 20 days to go. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome because I think it also just shows that there is this population of people who want this type of like sustainable, easy device, which gives me a lot of hope.
And it's so gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually have a background in industrial design. I
Uh-huh.
just like got into electronics through Little Bits, to be honest. I didn't know anything about electronics before I worked there.
But so do you think the background in industrial design is what enabled you to make this beautiful sort of bamboo case with the nice little screws and everything?
Yeah, I think so, because it's really like I actually always tell people that as a typical industrial designer, I actually don't love industrial design because I think the field skews more towards like high-end furniture and like weird lamps that are sold for dollars. And I think that's like a total waste of time because we don't need more chairs or lamps really that are high-end. But what I think is exciting is using those skills and applying them towards things that really haven't been made yet and have like a real need and a real use. So it's like, how would a furniture designer design a solar panel? And it's like, here you go. Like it can actually make a big difference on things that most people don't think about as being designed. Like solar panels are typically very utilitarian like that. They're just like slapped on a pole.
Right.
So trying to take that approach to it, making it like more human and warm and personal.
Yeah, you've got on your Instagram, you've got some examples of other things. Like you didn't want it to be like there's the sort of solar panels on a house, and then there's the solar panels that are sort of for camping, and you really didn't want to have that. Those were sort of the only options out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like in my Kickstarter video too. Like I consider myself a very eco-conscious person, but if you saw me on the street, you probably wouldn't assume that because I don't wear like hemp clothing and like Birkenstock. Like there's this whole spectrum of people I think who are at different levels of caring about the environment, but to really make a big difference, I think there's a big barrier. So unless you're like into outdoorsy stuff and camping, you might not even know that these personal solar panels exist.
Yeah.
Like me, like I was into it, and then when you go look up the ones that exist, you know, they're like injection molded bright orange or like in
I
camo.
literally have one of those in our window here, and it falls over all the time because it doesn't have the hanger like you have.
Or like they're like camouflage, like Velcro, like, you know, just the style that, as awful as it sounds, like I, even me being interested in eco, like I wouldn't buy it because of that. So I was like, there's probably a lot of people who feel the same way.
Yeah, and you know, it goes the other way too. People who are looking for something beautiful and interesting to put in their house, like, could find this that way and get into solar panel, or even if they weren't already.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually were recently covered by apartment therapy, which I didn't expect. But then I was like, oh, interesting. Like people just looking for home decor. This is like a cool crossover
It
to
totally is.
yeah, to get them started. Yeah.
You've also got some stuff about, like you mentioned, you started out as an industrial designer and then you sort of learned all this electronic stuff
Yeah.
while working at Little Bits, and you've clearly been teaching yourself all this, um, how to build solar panels and put together solar systems, which I'm also interested in. Like, how did you teach yourself, and what have you learned?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think the biggest thing I've learned about electronics is, and this is like not a sponsored Little Bits post, but Little Bits taught me a lot. And I think if you think about new systems in like inputs, outputs, and like power supplies, it's actually pretty easy to look at different devices and like figure out how they work. I don't know if you like agree with that when you're deconstructing stuff. So when I started researching solar, I was like, okay, so the like typical solar panels, there's really only like a couple of different kinds, like polycrystalline, monocrystalline, flexible, like there's like dye, sensitized, all those kinds. And I just started to research in like if I want my output to be a phone, then my input has to be this, like based on wattage,
Yeah.
just from like doing the math. And then if that's what I want to store, then my battery should be this. And I was like, oh, like once you figure out the little pieces, then I literally just started like, I think I started off with like a 6 watt panel and it just like wasn't enough power. So then I just kept iterating on the different combinations. And then eventually I did end up like, I do have a team of small contractors that help me like make my design manufacturable because I definitely can't do enough of the EE to like bring it to the finish line. So
Right.
so once I got a really good prototype together that like basically worked, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, can you help me optimize it so that it would work for like a customer? And then it
Hmm.
kind of like went really fast from there.
There's definitely a lot of stuff that seems kind of intuitive, and a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect that totally makes sense to bring in those experts for. I did some really stupid stuff, like, for example, I made this thing that, has solar charging, but the battery was like inside and it got too warm and the battery puffed up, and it's like stuff like that. I'm like, you don't want an exploding stuff on these windows.
No. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like safety circuitry and stuff like that. I was like, I know I need that. I don't know how to do that. And like, it's so worth like getting help. And actually the picture you had up before, I started off buying like solar cells off of eBay just to like see, there was like one of like everything was like broken.
Yeah.
I was like trying, I thought I was gonna like make the solar panels. And then after like 10 of these, like silicon solar cells are so fragile that
Yeah.
if you buy them raw and like drop them an inch, they literally shatter. So
Wow.
I spent days like soldering them together, and then you would just like sneeze and it would just break. And I was like, okay, like now that I understand the system, like I need help making these because it takes such a specialized like set of skills to work with them. And that's when I
Yeah.
started working with like a solar manufacturer to get to this like more finished design that I have.
It looks so good.
Yeah.
And this also isn't the first time that you've created sort of a finished thing with solar. I loved, like, when I first heard about you, it was through this Solar Cat project that you did
Yeah.
at the
Oh, I love
museum.
Solar Cat. Yeah.
Where's it? Where's it?
I think you
There
have
we
it to
go.
left. Yeah. That.
It's so cool.
So cool. Yeah. So yeah, I was a designer in residence at NYSCI, the New York Hall of Science, that hosts RIP Maker Faire every year in New York. So I always been a
Yeah.
fan of the museum, and they had a call for entries where they were looking for like creative technologists to make new installations for them. So I pitched this like giant solar panel installation, not really knowing it was going to be a cat at first. It took like a few months of like user testing with kids there to like see what would get them interested in like a solar exhibit. But yeah, it's basically like a giant form of the solar panel, the bamboo solar panel on Kickstarter, but different materials in a different shape. And I honestly think that's what's so exciting about solar, is that it can be very modular.
Yeah.
And like once you have that system down where you're like, okay, I want to power X, like I need this many watts, and then it can just be in many different shapes. So I would love to make like many different cat or animal shaped solar panels everywhere. I think it's so cool.
I think the biggest challenge for me there is just figuring out, the physical layout, because you can do like some in series, some in parallel and stuff, and just making sure that stuff is all tuned.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I think too, like you were saying, once I started to like get a little bigger, I honestly just like started hiring people to help me, because it's impossible to be good at everything. And I think like one of my strengths is definitely more on the design side of being like, this is the thing that I think people would like and I really want to build. And then for specific aspects, like getting those experts in is key.
I think it's brilliant. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So
Like
on your
I'll draw the cat shape, and like I need help with other stuff.
Yeah, and so on your site, you also have a couple of previous projects that seem like similar to this idea of using design to create things that people maybe didn't think of already that could actually be really useful. So like this immunization post one,
Yeah.
and this wild grid. Would you like to talk about those for a minute?
Sure. Yeah, I think so I went to Georgia Tech for undergrad in industrial design, and I think while there I was really inspired by like mission-driven design and mission-driven companies that are designing things that could really help people or help the environment. So the immunization post was actually my senior project, where we were teamed up with like a team at the CDC, because they're also in Atlanta, and they would
Mm.
present us case studies, and we could like design something around like real information. So this was making like a portable medical supply kit that people could, carry around remote locations, that was pretty light and like easily repairable for people in developing countries, which was really really exciting.
Mm,
Wild Grid was actually kind of like a precursor seed to Grouphug. So I used to work on these projects with one of my friends, Harumi Nanayakara, who also worked at Little Bits with me. And we were just kind of serendipitously both really into like off-grid battery stuff.
cool.
Yeah, so that's like a mini microbial fuel cell, where it's dirt like mixed with like beer and like yeast, and it generates a lot of like bacteria, where there's this reaction where things biodegrade called a redox reaction. She's
Huh,
actually a biologist, so I learned a lot from her.
cool.
Yeah, you can like generate really 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 tiny amounts of electricity. It's like nano energy, to be honest. Like it would take like a year to charge your phone with like a dirt battery. But I think like these little baby steps kind of got me to group hug, because I've always been interested in like educational electronics through Little Bits and energy, and then putting it all together and being like, okay, solar is like ready for innovation. I think some of the
Yeah.
other smaller ones, it takes so much energy to make it usable, where I was like, I'm gonna stick with solar at first, because it's the price is there and the availability is there, and I think people are ready for it. But one day I'll make a dirt battery, and
It seems
maybe
like a perfect thing for like a July 4th camp out or whatever,
yeah,
where like
beer can, yeah, I don't know.
it's all
One
getting
day.
spilled on the ground anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love to like eventually open up to making just like a suite of like really beautiful, cool energy products that get people more into it.
Yeah, and I think that's key is what you're talking about, like inspiring people, like just sort of demystifying it, making it so that people understand what you were saying about how solar isn't that hard.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
like, but it's hard to like go out there and be like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm starting from scratch.
Totally, especially I think like visibility is key. Like no one ever sees a solar panel like up close. You know, they're always like very far away or on a rooftop. So yeah, I think like making it more visible and like a part of your life, it's really like a stepping stone. Like I hope that people buy this product and then go on to buy solar panels for their roofs and like tell their friends about solar energy. So it's really just like a little seed. Yeah.
Plus, it's exciting the way you put it together. It's clearly laser cut, and you've got these visible screws. This thing that I have is, it's just shoved together. There's no way I can like take this apart and not have it shatter. If one of yours sort of breaks down, someone can fix it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually part of the design too. Like because the solar panel itself is rated to last like over 25 years. And to
Wow.
be honest, like solar panel ratings are a little like in flux because it just like hasn't even been 25 years since they've all come out. So it could last even longer than that. But the battery, like, batteries do have to get replaced and recycled depending on how much you use it. So making sure that a person could replace the battery without getting rid of the whole unit was really, really key. Because, like, I would hate the thought of someone throwing out the whole thing just because the battery died is like painful.
Yeah. Plus, there's other types of batteries coming up too, because obviously there's an impact environmentally from creating batteries and stuff, and socially too. The fact that you're looking at building them out of soil and stuff. What's the most interesting battery tech you've come across?
I think bacteria and algae. So like algae is one of the more feasible versions of bacteria batteries. And I think there's a lab at Penn State that's like the most advanced lab doing it. But it's really interesting because it is like renewable because you can like keep growing bacteria and algae and like creating the energy from it. But I know that I think it requires like platinum or something. Like there's
Oh
always
yeah.
like in any energy there's like there's always a catch. So it's not very affordable or scalable right now, but I think it's pretty exciting.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So you've gone through you've clearly had this progression of like wild grid, kind of solar cat, this.
Windows solar charger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any like wild dreams or grand plans for the future? Like,
Ooh. Let's see. I know this now. I'm just trying to survive this year because I think it's been like a crazy year. SolarCat actually came out like a month ago, so it's like been a very busy solar year. Honestly, I think my dream would be to build this brand on having these different like I kind of think of them as like Trojan horse like devices where in a good way, like they look so
oh
beautiful that
yeah.
you don't even like realize that like, oh, this is actually like a working solar panel and you're like learning more from it than you think, and it's like impacting your life in a way that's like so seamless. But like that would be my dream, and I would love to do it for like this sounds really crazy, but like a little mini turbine and like bigger solar panels and just like all these little ways that sustainability could be integrated into your life that's like seamless. I really want to make a solar powered indoor composter.
Huh.
So just I have like a long list of like dozens of things that I want to make.
And you talked a little bit about composting and your closed loop experiment from back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, so this was like a big spark for me, but everyone talks about like zero waste now, but when I was in college, I did this experiment in lieu of like a design project where instead of making something, I lived with my garbage for 6 months.
Mhm.
And I like did this big report and analysis on like how all these things that I like collected could have been redesigned to like avoid landfills. And I think that was a big piece for me, at least in design school. You are always taught about like how to make things and like how to work with plastic and how to work with like metal and how to work with materials. It's a very like practical degree, but there wasn't a lot of like questioning of like, but why are we learning this? So that was sort of my mini rebellion to be like, I'm not making anything, like I'm gonna collect my trash because it's already been made. Yeah, and composting was huge then because obviously collecting compost for 6 months is gross, and I eventually found like a loop of where to drop off the compost because I didn't know anything about it. And I do think there's some barriers to composting, at least in a city. Like where I live in New York, there are drop offs near me, but they're like at least a 10-minute walk. And like today it's pouring rain outside, and like I'm just not going to go out of my way to do anything, you know? And I think if you can make it easier and make it, the great thing about motorized compost is that you can actually put meat and dairy inside because it like can heat it up and kill bacteria. So like the less thought I think that goes into sorting, the better.
Cool. That's really interesting what you say about the compost delivery. This is a little bit off topic, but I think one of the coolest things for sustainability and diminishing food waste is like these organizations that will run, if you have like an event and you have a bunch of sandwiches left over, they'll like take that and take it to a shelter or something. And it
That's
seems like something like that would work for compost as well if you had that.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually you can bring it back to energy. At least in New York, there's a facility that does like it collects like the methane that comes off of compost, like one compost facility in New York, and like uses it for as like they treat it somehow and then like use it for energy. It's like very cool. So
That's brilliant. We should like repurpose some of those last mile delivery robots for this.
that yeah. I think that would be, yeah, it's things like that. Like drones are being made and deployed to like do all of this like consumer stuff, but they actually could be used in a more mission-y way of like collecting things that actually need collect and like deploying supplies that really need to be deployed. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. What was your favorite thing you worked on at Little Bits?
Ooh, so many. Oh my gosh. Okay, the top two were probably I got to work on the we did a DIY synthesizer kit with Korg like back in
Cool.
2013-ish, 13, 12,
I
13.
remember seeing this.
Yeah, and like the Reggie Watts was in the video, and like we had like a concert at Le Poisson Rouge in New York, which is like this big concert venue, and it was just so much fun. And I actually so a lot of my job at Little Bits was taking the actual like hardware and bits and like creating this experience around it that people could understand and like follow instructions and like creating themes and content. And I didn't know anything about music before I worked on the kit. And like a lot of what I had to do was like sit down with our engineers, and they would teach me like what an envelope meant, what an oscillator, what was a filter was, and then I would write like the content and like make the projects around it. So I just felt like I got this amazing crash course in like modular synths. And I learned so much. And I think it's one of those kits where it's really educational. Like I myself learned about synths just making it, and it's so fun. Like just by twisting like an oscillator, like the possibilities are endless. And yeah, I think music is also just very personal inherently. So a lot of people have really unique experiences with the kit, and yeah, that was my favorite. And I'm a huge Star Wars geek, so I got to work on a lot of licensing deals with Little Bits. So I worked on the Droid Inventor kit. I was like the lead designer on that kit.
Ooh.
So I got to like go to Lucasfilm and like die in their office because it was so amazing.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and like I, like worked on R2D2 details and content, and yeah, that was awesome. That was really
That's
awesome.
somewhere in here, but
Yeah.
oh, that's so rad. I
Um,
love when you get to learn stuff on the job in order to build things. That's like the best thing ever.
yeah, yeah, it was awesome because then I felt like I really like I was learning about synths like on the job, and then I was like, oh, I'm so fresh to this, so I felt like I had a good perspective of like teaching someone else. Because I think sometimes, and I don't know if you feel this, but sometimes if you know too much about something, it can be hard to explain.
Yeah, totally.
Can be hard to explain. So I felt like some of the engineers I worked with would explain it to me, but they're so smart and so knowledgeable. I would be like, I still don't understand what you're saying. And I would ask so many questions until I got it. And then I would be like, oh, now I get it. And now I can
Yeah.
tell someone else in like a boiled down way.
You've worked with a ton of different materials, and like I'm guessing
Oh,
you
yeah.
got to do a lot of this with your design background, but what's your favorite materials to work with?
Ooh. Ooh, so that's actually laser cut pleather, and
Ooh.
laser cut, no, maybe like hand, I forget. I think I bought like, it's like a constructed like a little beach ball, like I
Uh-huh.
forget what that material is called, kind of like an acetate. But yeah, this was fun. It was like a dystopian mask that I made for New York Design Week. When there's not enough oxygen, you would have to like collect plants and like suck their oxygen out. Yeah. Favorite material, as cliche as it is, I think wood. Just because it's so versatile, like depending on what kind it is, you can laser cut it, you can machine it, you can make it into like any shape you need it to be. And I actually have consciously, especially with Grouphug, have been trying to 3D print less actually and use less plastic just in my prototyping process,
Uh-huh.
because I think like in school we used to make a lot of like pink foam and blue foam models. If you've ever seen those, it's like literally styrofoam and you like carve it into all these shapes, and
Like
then
the hot wire thingy or whatever.
yeah,
Oh.
exactly. And then at the end it's like, oh, like this is all just garbage kind of. So when I can, I prototype a lot with cardboard because it's like totally recyclable. It's really easy and like accessible, and you can laser cut it really easily. And then I always do like paper, cardboard, and then I go into wood.
Cool. Yeah, plus wood and electronics just look really nice together.
Yeah, I feel like not enough people do that. I think it's such a cool. Honestly, I think we're going to be seeing more of it because now that like I think people are getting a little sick of like all electronics kind of look the same. It's like the
Yeah.
rounded like silvery white boxes, and like I think people's interest in like home decor and DIY like decor is like going up, especially if you look at Etsy and like Pinterest. It's like so many DIY home decor things happening that I think people will want to put more personality into their everyday stuff.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I collect the filament that we cast off for like supports and stuff, but there really isn't a good system for recycling that or like you can compost PLA, but
It's true.
like how do I put it in the compost or is there like special I need to do the research on that, but honestly like
Yeah. Yeah. I think like sometimes there are like really complex forms where you really have to 3D print it, but I try to like minimize only because I feel like I know I feel guilty. I
totally,
have
yeah.
I have heard of this really cool filament that's made out of ocean plastic though. I can send you a link if you're interested.
That's
One
really
of my
cool.
one of my friends at ADO was printing with it. It looks pretty cool.
Nice. So wrapping up back to your Kickstarter,
Yeah.
you mentioned you've got 3 weeks to
Excited.
go. It's like kind of a marathon. What's getting you through this, and what do you think you would do differently? I know that you're still in the middle of it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have actually lined up some like events and things happening to like keep it exciting.
Oh,
So
cool.
next week I'm speaking at the New York Tech Hardware Meetup. It's like a pretty active group where every month there's a bunch of talks. And I'm doing a solar panel workshop at it's an accelerator called Company. They used to be called Grand Central Tech in New York. So there is kind of like a nice like tight knit hardware community in New York that I really love. So I'm doing some talks and like hoping to talk to some people. And then the last week I'm doing a cocktail party at Kickstarter to like celebrate the campaign ending. And like I would love, honestly, I've been so like happy and overwhelmed with how many like strangers have backed the project, because I think I
Yeah.
kind of expected, like the first day it's like mostly my friends who I like asked like please support me, and then since then it's like all of these people who are really into solar. So we're hosting a cocktail hour so I could like meet any backer that's in New York and wants to come out and like hang out at Kickstarter. So that will be fun. And then honestly, I'm just excited to sort of get into the nitty gritty of all the design details for production.
Oh,
So
yeah.
one of our right now I'm kind of in the weeds on like logistics, shipping, and packaging. So I'm working on the packaging design, and it's going to be really like minimalist and like recycled cardboard, paper pulp, like
Mm.
kind of deal. I'm trying one tough thing when you're shipping product is like a lot of factories recommend putting like poly bags on different components, like little like those thin plastic bags, because they
Like,
like protect for protection purposes so
yeah.
that nothing gets scratched. And I'm trying to figure out a way to like avoid any plastic in the box.
Yeah.
So thinking about
That's really
that. And
cool.
then I'm actually working with a third-party carbon offset company to like
Yeah,
calculate and buy carbon credits for all of our shipping and fulfillment, because we are doing all of our manufacturing in China. So
that
like,
is so cool.
yeah, and honestly, it's a pretty easy process. So I feel like every company should do that. It's like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm trying to promote that for travel now. I think it would be a
Yeah.
really cool thing to, because there's so much business travel and like it costs so little to offset it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I think was surprising for me to learn going through the process of the offsetting, is that shipping and like flying is not as many like tons of carbon as you would think, which surprised me. So when I was working with that company and they told me, I was like, whoa, like why doesn't everybody do this?
Yeah.
Why doesn't everybody do this? They should do that. I mean, I've heard that airlines, I think, are going to be taking, maybe going to be taking like more responsibility.
I've seen one or two where you can like pay a little extra to make your flight carbon neutral, but yeah, it's definitely still in its infancy.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, how, so you've sold a ton of these, like so many of these. Are you gonna contract with someone to do the laser cutting and assembly and stuff? Because you talked about design for manufacture.
Yeah.
Or you're not gonna laser cut these all yourself, right?
No.
Oh, yeah,
No.
cool.
I wish I could, because they're fun to do. But
Uh-huh.
no, so I am actually partnering with like a contract manufacturer to like help me scale and oversee everything. So
Nice.
like some of the connections and details will change slightly, only because we're like designing them for manufacturing and assembly. But the size, and it'll be bamboo, and basically everything will be the same. But like I've been like timing myself of like, it takes me this long to assemble one, and like these are the pain points. So I think this is again like working with an expert who can be like, oh, if you used this instead of finger joining, it would be this times faster. And I'm like, great, like I didn't even know that. So definitely working with partners to help me scale.
That
Yeah.
seems like one of your like most crucial skills is like just know, like so many people don't know that and they try to do everything themselves and they get mired in all the details and like
Yeah.
totally burned out.
Yeah. And I think it's just like knowing that like you can do everything, and like I don't know everything, and sometimes you just need an expert to help you. But it is tough to know when. Like I think it takes you trying I think it takes you trying to do it. Like I thought I could make solar panels from scratch. I can't really. Like I tried and I just shattered all of them. So I was like, okay, this isn't working. Let me figure out a way to get this to work. And I think it is like about just knowing that if something doesn't work, it might not be your idea. It might literally just be you personally can't do it by yourself, which is
Right.
like totally understandable, because it never, like one person can never take an idea ever.
And tons of this stuff takes like years to learn and
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's just like, I don't know, be extra humble. Like you can't do everything. It's
it
fine.
makes total sense.
Yeah.
So people can pick up one of these for $150 or two of them for $250, which is a great deal.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
already sold out of all your early bird ones.
I know. Yeah. And then yeah, we still have 21 days to go. And I'm even if you don't buy a product and you just want to back with an enamel pin or a different amount of money, you'll get signed up for updates. So every like week I post an update. So this week I posted about going carbon neutral. Next week I'm going to post our packaging design. The third week I'll probably post more details about DFM or something like that, to keep people like feeling like they're a part of the process. Because to be honest, one of the biggest advantages of being on Kickstarter is connecting with this community who's interested
Right.
in doing, understands that it's early, and can like give you really good feedback. So that's I like look forward to people's feedback. I think that's great.
That's so cool. All right, everybody, go back this on Kickstarter. It's the Windows Solar Charger. We will put the link, as always, in the description of this video. Go follow Grouphug Tech on Instagram. Is there what other places would people keep in touch with you?
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's all Grouphug Tech. We kept it really easy. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is so cool, and congrats. And
thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to chat with you about all.
great.
I'll call you when I have bacteria batteries ready to go.
Yes.